Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be taking you through a quick Milky Way edit. Now, it's not my entire workflow by any stretch of the imagination. I often spend anywhere from 2 to 4 hours on a single image. But hopefully some of the techniques that I show you today will help you enhance your nightscape images and take them to the next level. So let's jump right on in. All right, so what I have here is actually two different images. One is a foreground that I captured during blue hour. Now this is actually a focus stacked image, but for the sake of this video, we're just going to pretend that this is one single foreground image captured during blue hour. Now, just a couple of things to note. Pretty much all of my nightscape images, the foregrounds are captured during blue hour. The reason being, I like to have very clean images without a lot of noise. And so if you zoom in, you can see there's a lot of detail in here and there is not a ton of noise, which is what we like to see. And so then I also have my Milky Way image. Now, this is actually a stacked image of 10 different tracked images. So basically I have a device that counteracts the rotation of the Earth, allowing you to do much longer exposures. This is 10 different exposures at 120 seconds. But the techniques that I'll show you won't matter if it's a tracked image, tracked and stacked image, or just a single frame image. We have these two images, and so what we're going to do today is we're going to combine them and then do some quick edits to make it really pop. You know, you can see the Milky Way. It's really cool, but it is not popping the way that I like my Milky Ways to pop. So the first thing that we want to do, and again, you can do this whether you're compositing, whether you're blending blue hour and a Milky Way image, whatever it might be. These techniques will help you combine multiple images. So the first step is we have to cut out the sky. This is actually a fairly tricky image to do so, just because you have a lot of fine details in this brush and trees and all of that. So this one's not a trivial edit. Let's just jump right in. And to be clear, there are a lot of different techniques on how to separate skies, foregrounds. I know Photoshop has a native sky replacement tool. I don't use it, mostly because I've been editing for a while and have my own techniques and processes that work for me. And so I'm going to show you what I do. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come over here and make sure that our quick selection tool is selected. And then we're just going to click and paint in the sky area. And you can see the selection is not great. It is not selecting for the blues that come through the branches and the leaves and whatnot. So we have to refine this. And so we go up to select and mask, click on that. I like to come over here to view, and then I like overlay personally. Just allows me to see the image a little bit better. I like to have a little bit smaller of a brush. So whatever your keystrokes are to reduce the size of the brush, I'm on a Mac, and so I do Control Option Click, and then I drag to the left to make it a little bit smaller, and then we just paint. And this is the beauty of and power of Photoshop. We're painting over this whole mess of an area. And often after I go over a bit of the horizon, I will let go, and you can kind of see what it's done. Those areas are now showing through, which is great. We're just going to continue doing this. When I go over edges like this, I like to make it a lot smaller, just to make it a little bit more accurate when you don't have these big areas that need to be edited. So a little bit smaller. Just going to continue going all the way around. Alrighty, so now that that's all selected fairly well, it's certainly not perfect, but for the sake of this video, good enough, and we will also go over some ways to refine it after this. So then we press OK. You've got your marching ants. Hold Option and click on this button, which is to apply the mask. There we have it. And again, so this Milky Way is aligned where it was in the actual sky over this foreground. I use photo pills to do that, and then just in post-production align it and edit it as such. First things first, what I do want to do, just make sure that this mask is properly selected. So hold Option and click on the mask and you can see the actual mask. Gonna make sure I'm in brush, which is B. Make sure it's black, 100% flow, 100% opacity, and then I am just going to paint out this area just to make sure the entire mask is how it should be. Hold Option, click again. Now we have the combined foreground and sky. This is obviously not nearly done. The Milky Way isn't what I would like it to be. So let's pop into the Milky Way and do some basic edits to start off. What I'm gonna do is Command Shift A on a Mac. That's gonna bring up my camera raw. So we're gonna zoom in here. I actually don't wanna be at 100%. Let's go to 66. So I can see the Milky Way and a couple of basic adjustments that we wanna do. Here's a little trick. I shared it on my Instagram recently, but we're gonna bring the vibrance and saturation all the way up. And that allows us to play around a little bit with the Milky Way's colors, so we can color correct it the way that we want. So then we go into the tint. I want to bring out some of that magenta a little bit. I'm gonna make it, I think right there is where I like it. You have the orange and reds that are natural to the Milky Way. You can see in Row of Fuji that the colors are pretty accurate here, magenta here, so that's good. So now we double click on the little arrow right here, we drop the saturation and vibrance down quite a bit. So right now what I want to do, let's bring up the whites, let's bring down the blacks a little bit. So I'm just gonna play around within Camera Raw to get a decent color grade, saturation, contrast within the Milky Way until I'm happy. One other thing I like to do, I like to go into Color Mixer. Instead of just doing vibrance and saturation globally, I'm going to bring out the oranges to about, let's just say 30% for right now. Reds, maybe plus 20. Do want to bring out the purples, magentas, again, in the 20-30 range. Yellows, I'm gonna bring that out too. I'm actually gonna drop the greens just a little bit because that's gonna be some of the air glow that happens on the horizon potentially. So I think we're good for there for now. Go back to basic and do some other adjustments here to bring out some of the contrast and whatnot that we want within the image. So a little bit before after. It's looking pretty decent for right now. I might bring up the vibrance, bring it down a little bit again. All right, so it's looking like a pretty solid start to it. So that's part's okay. Don't want to go overboard. I like to do things in smaller steps so that I can always dial it back. So now that we have a basic adjustment to our Milky Way, we're seeing it's looking a lot better right there. I'm going to bring up the foreground foreground here just a little bit. Just too dark for me. I like to go back and forth between the foreground and the Milky Way just to bring out the overall image to the right brightness that I want eventually. And you can definitely still see that there's kind of haloing around the edges of this. We'll fix that in a bit. So just do a curves adjustment layer. Now hold Option and you can see that little box with an arrow. We click that and that links this adjustment layer to this layer specifically. So anything we do here doesn't affect the Milky Way at all, which is what we want. So I want to bring this up. I'm going to drop down the shadows a little bit. Keep some of that contrast. You can see we're definitely making it a lot brighter. Now we've enhanced some of the haloing here. I don't want this to be as bright as it is right now. We really want to enhance the cool, gnarly wood here, and then also have this be the focal point, the balanced rock here. So what we'll do then is with our brush selected, make sure that it is black. That will hide the adjustments that we've made. And so I want to go down to about 20% flow, and I want to make sure that my hardness is 0. So you can do that up here or Control Option, click and drag up all the way. So I'm just gonna paint this back. Alrighty, so we can see what happens when we show the mask that we made. And so that's shift and click. So you can see it just darkens it, and then this overall brings that out. And I actually might bring this down. It might have been a little too much for the time being. So I'm just going to drop the opacity of this layer, go down to 70%. So I think that looks pretty good. Again, it's not finished by any means, but I think it's a good step. Let's go back to the Milky Way. I'm gonna do a curves adjustment layer. I wanna bring this up a little bit. I wanna create some more contrast within the Milky Way, bring out some of these details a little bit more. I think it's not quite cool enough. I wanna make this a little bit cooler, a little bit bluer of a Milky Way edit. So I'm gonna go over to here, blue, bring that up. I wanna go overboard. I think that's pretty good. You can see brought out some detail within the Milky Way, made it a little bit cooler, which I like. Let's do another curves adjustment layer, and I often just do a lot of these little adjustment layers to continue to bring out some more contrast. And so then I can go back and, forth, I can see each change that I made. I want to make it so it's not destructive, that I can go back and re-edit. Which I often do. I often, will take a few hours or a couple days break in between sessions on a specific photo, just so that I can, let my eyes adjust, so I don't overdo it. Often if I just sit there and just do an edit all at once, I will overdo it. So I like to take some time off and then come back to it and be able to, have some fresh eyes and dial it back to where I really want it. Again, just some slight edits, some smaller adjustments. You can see what's happening as we make these changes. So I like that change. So for the sake of this video, like I said, I would spend a lot more time on this, but I want to show you a couple other techniques to blend this a little bit better. Let's say that we're happy with this Milky Way. I'm not, but again, for time, let's say that we are. One thing that I personally like to do is add a horizon glow. That allows for a better blend between a brighter foreground, especially when you have blue hour. You get some of this, the haloing or whatever you want to call it. You can see some of the edging around some of these rocks. Multiple different ways that I blend that together so you don't have these issues. First and foremost, I just like to add a horizon glow. So we're going to click just a empty new layer, make sure our brush is selected, and this really depends on the style that you want, or just the style of or the scene. I personally edit my images to the color grade that I have in the image, not necessarily the most truest to the actual natural world. As you can see, there's some orange in this horizon, so select, option click, and you select the colors there. And we could go up here. I always choose hard light. I think that has the best blending mode for when you're doing a horizon glow. And so I could certainly just do something like this. I like to have my flow at around 4 or 5, and we just paint this. And I like the orange here. You can come back to this, but I want to try a bluer one. So let's deselect this one. Let's go to blue like that. Let's play around with what this looks like. The reason I'm choosing this, because I feel like it's just we cooled down everything a little bit. The log here is pretty cool. The Milky Way itself is pretty cool. And so I want to try just a cooler horizon glow. That's a little much for me, and it's a little too saturated. So let's drop this down to maybe 40%. Oh, well, here's a mistake for y'all. So this was in normal, and that's hard light. So you can see the difference, still quite a bit saturated, so we do want to drop this down. There is a pretty significant difference between normal and hard light. So we're going to do one more pass at this, but I'm just going to be selecting a less saturated brush here. We're just going to paint this back in. I kind of like that. I actually like the orange more though. I think it does give it a better look overall to the image. So we're actually just gonna delete these 2 layers. this is really what it's all about. I've already edited this image before, but I kind of purposely didn't study it because I wanted to, kind of get a new feel of how I wanted to edit this. I love coming back and editing old images, and for the sake of this video, I thought it'd be good to kind of edit this a little bit fresh from previous influences. And so, now we can see some of that light, the edging issues that we talked about before aren't as bad. So if we hide this, you can see it makes it a lot better in these areas. That's because there's more contrast. But so what we can do here, one tip to blend some of this is just to do another adjustment layer, kind of like we did here, to make this brighter. We're going to do the opposite. So we're going to click here, brightness, contrast, option, click. We're going to drop this brightness down. Now we're obviously affecting the overall foreground, which we do not want to do. We want to be selective here. So Command I, which will invert the mask. We're going to paint it back in certain areas. So let's zoom in a little bit, make this smaller, make sure that white is selected as our brush. So we're going to press that. Now that white is selected, we can paint this back and you can see it darkening the image. I'm actually going to do around 20% again for an adjustment like this. I'll paint it back into the areas that we want some more contrast. So honestly, I think that's looking pretty good. Now again, I would take a lot more time to enhance my Milky Way, my overall nightscape image, but I think those are a handful of good basic adjustments and tips and tricks that will help you enhance your nightscape images. Don't forget to drop a like, comment, or subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and we'll see you in the next one.